Okay, good morning, everyone, again. And I'm not waiting for the translation. Okay, I'm not waiting for the translation. So last week we started the series on the book of Jonah, and we talked about that God is calling us for a specific purpose. And today we are going to continue to do that, to understand the book and learn from the book of Jonah how our life consists of a series of missions which God will give us and how we relate to them. So the story of Jonah, as we said from last time, is not just a tale. It's not just some myth, but it's real historical event that we can learn from it. It actually happened. We believe it because Jesus said it. The Bible recorded it. It's a narrative. It's a story that we all should be able to resonate with because we all doing the same thing or see our reflection in Jonah. And today what we are going to see is that Jonah is being given a mission. And the mission actually defined who he was and how he should conduct himself in order to live, so to speak, a fulfilled life. A life full of purpose and meaning. Yeah, I guess everyone in this world basically struggle with a couple of questions, even though we don't ask them now. Asking them out loud, or we are not really be able to articulate what those questions are. Yeah, those questions are actually like who we are, where I'm coming from, and what I'm doing here, and what is my significance. Yeah, those are the reasons or other questions we try to answer in our life. Who we are, where we came from, what's my significance. You may not ask those questions now, but question is, the point is that the things you do, the decision you make, the way you live, reflect that you're pursuing those answers. Things you do, people you interact with, conversation you carry, tend to find those answers. Who we are, why I'm important, how I can be important in my eyes, in people's eyes. Lots of time when we do that just within that, in the Bible language or vocabulary is that we do it under the sun. We try to find our significance, find the answers without God. And that's where trouble comes in, because we will never be satisfied. Because under the sun or without God, we will never find the true answer to those questions. Therefore, where we keep looking and still not satisfied, still not fulfilled. No matter how busy you are, how occupied you are, how successful you are, you're still looking for those answers. You keep pushing one more step, one more thing. But then you find that, after you get what you want or what you think it will satisfy you, you say, it's just a thing or just something. Think of all the achievement, accomplishment, accolades that you have accumulated all these years since you were very young. Even though some of you were still really, really young, but you have achieved a lot. In your school, on the soccer field or whatever, right? When I was in high school or even in elementary school, I won lots of awards, like storytelling awards, singing awards, debate awards, and lots of things. But when I look back, I don't even, if I'm not preparing the sermon, I don't even remember any of those things. And if I don't remember any of those things, guess what? No one else will remember those things. Not my parents, not my siblings, not my friends. No one cares. I'm sorry. What you achieve, along the way, most of the time, after a couple of years, no one really care. Because they don't have eternal significance. Think about all those people who won Olympics. Olympics just passed. I mean, do you remember who won what awards? Maybe 2 or 3, right? But there were hundreds of gold medals, or maybe not hundreds, but hundreds of medals, right? Nobody really remember. I mean, it's not that they are not good, but they're not good in themselves. If our goal is trying to get those things, at the end of your life or after a period of time, you'll find out that is not really satisfying. That is not really meaningful. That is not we really want to go after. That is what we are talking about today. Why Jonah's story is relevant to us, it resonates with us. So give us some background for the passage. I mean, since it's described the city of Nineveh. The word of the Lord came to Jonah, son of Amittai, go to the great city of Nineveh and preach against it, because its wickedness has come up before me. So the first thing we want to talk about is the city of Nineveh. Since the Bible gives some description of it, even though it's very brief, but we learn a lot from history, world history and archaeology, we actually could know quite a bit about this city. The Bible, there's a reason the Bible describes it as the great city. Huge city, big. Not just in terms of size, we can see that it actually is great in many ways. Yeah, in terms of, location where it is like 75 miles south of today's Turkey, if your geography is good, south of Turkey, and like 200 miles north of Baghdad, Iraq. So the ballpark figure is northeast of Israel. It's like 600 miles away from there. So living in there are lots of people. That's why it's called a great city. But first thing we should notice to a Jew, for Jonah, when God called him to preach to the city of Nineveh, the first thing come to his mind, guess what? Those are not Jews. That's the first thing that would pop up in his mind. Those are Gentiles. Those are foreigners. Those are idol worshippers. Why would God send me over there to preach or to share the gospel or the good news to a whole bunch of people I don't even know, I don't really care? Because these people, they worship different gods. Lots of gods, lots of myths. It's just like when you read Greek mythologies. There are lots of gods, lots of stories about how the world was created, how human beings came along. They worship different religions. They spoke a different language. For the Jews, they spoke the Hebrew language. For these people, first of all, they spoke something like called Akkadian, and then they switched language to Aramaic, but still not quite exactly sound like the classic or the Hebrew these people, Jonah was speaking. And they're living in totally different culture and totally different values. And it's just completely different. It's like, hey, when you compare if you consider the Christian values, Christian morality system to the world, you'll find that it's very different. Not to shame these people, but it's just different. When you compare, it's night and day. It's like black and white. I mean, you can't fathom what Jonah was thinking when God called him to this Gentile nation. And this is also not just a Gentile city, as we said. The Bible actually named the specific attributes to it. This is it's a great city. It's a big city. Have you ever been to Dallas, Texas? If not, how about Indianapolis? I mean, I chose these two cities for a reason. I mean, of course, there are other cities. I mean, we can say Baltimore, we can say New York City or Los Angeles. But these two cities, actually in terms of size, the acreage is comparable to Nineveh. Yeah, I just went back from Texas. A month and a half ago. So I just came back from Texas. Dallas area, and then I will go again sometime. But that's a huge city. My seminary, when I study in seminary. Actually, it was in downtown Dallas. It's a huge city. I mean, it's not quite as big as Chicago or New York City, but it's still sizable. And Indianapolis is also huge. I mean, the loop, every big city has a loop. And Nineveh was that big. And how many people live there? The population is about 600,000. 600,000 is by no means a small city. There's a city very close by to us that is also 600,000 people. Guess which city? Baltimore. Exactly. Baltimore is 560 or 580,000 people. So when you picture Nineveh, it's a huge city with lots of people living in there, and that's why it's called a Greek city. At least back then, think about, you're talking about 2,700 years ago. That's a huge city. It's a mega city at that time. So their walls are huge. Even now, we don't see that often. That's why all this structure, all this thing we dug up, they're wonders, archaeological wonders. The city wall is like 100 feet tall. I don't even know what wall is 100 feet tall. I mean, is the border wall 100 feet tall? I don't know. I mean, they tried to build a big wall there, but yeah, this one is 100 feet tall. I mean, it's so wide you can have like 3 cars SUV run on top of it at the same time, like a 3-lane highway. I mean, it may not impress us, because we have 8-lane highways, but think of that, this is not even a highway. This is a city wall. You can have 3 SUV running on top of it, full speed. That's amazing. That's why it's a big city. There are so many attributes we can talk about, but let's not dwell on that. But this is a city really important to God. And God wants to send Jonah to this city, even though they're different. And what strikes us most is that this city actually is also great in one not so good way. It's great in its wickedness, great in its sins. I mean, in history of all those empires, if you count the series of empires in the Bible, I mean the biblical history, you have the Assyrians, and then you have the Babylonians, and then you have Persian, and then you have Greeks, and then you have the Romans. Guess which empire is the most cruel? The Assyrians. They are the worst one. They were the worst empires who dominated the world in terms of cruelty, how they treated their enemies or their POW. I mean, they're like a relief on the walls. I mean, now we dug up, we can see how they treated them. They actually put hooks in these people's tongues. If you're a POW, they put a fish hook, kind of like hook on your tongue. So they will just like a leash. I mean, they will just, drag you around with that. And after that, they have ways that they eliminated or neutralized their enemies. What they do is that human kebab, if you know what I mean. No, you won't eat kebab again. So, I'm not going to explain that. And then they also, frayed, their enemies' skins alive. When they were alive, they just took off their skin, and afterward, where do they put the skin? They they plaster it on the city wall. You guess, why they did that? Why in the world would they do something like that? Guess what? If you live in that city, you go in and out and see your people's skin plastered on the wall, how would you feel? It strikes fear into your heart. Would you think of like a rebel against them? Probably not, because you'll be the next one on display on the wall. So these people were just crazy people, incredibly wicked and cruel, and God called Jonah to preach to this so-called great city. And so you're thinking, wow, this is really something. God called Jonah, his prophets, to preach to this urban center full of crimes, wickedness, and violence. And yet God remembered these people. God wanted Jonah to go there and share the gospel with them. I mean, in our language. Today is not that different when you think about it. The audience of the gospel is also lots of time in Greek city. I mean, we are living in area with lots of people. Ellicott City, Columbia, Baltimore, or Towson, or wherever you live, there are lots of people. And we have lots of crimes too. Unfortunately, I mean, we have two of the highest murder rate or crime rate city around us. But guess what? I mean, they are still important to God. They are still remembered by God because they are created in God's image. We cannot just pretend they don't exist like Israel. As long as we're doing well, as long we are singing praise, we are worshiping on Sunday, we can just do our own thing. These people are important to God, and that's why that's the assignment. That's the audience. We may not really live in those big cities, but we are still live on the fringe of it. People commute in and out of those places, and in some way they are still like the Assyrians living in Nineveh, because these people are educated. The people living in Nineveh, they are really educated. They have a huge library, the biggest library at that time. Let me recall the number. 16,000 tablets, stone tablets, 16,000. Yeah, think of that. It's really funny. If you want to go to, if you go to the Ninevian library, you go there and want to check out a book, the librarian will actually go to the back and haul out a huge stone and give it to you. Think about that. There's 16,000 of these tablets. It's not a small number. I have probably I won't say 600. Probably I have about 2,000 books, probably, hard copies, 2,000. And it takes up lots of space, very heavy, not very useful anymore, because all my books are on my computer. But think about all these tablets back then, 16,000 tablets. It's a huge library. These people really read. They know. Even though they're cruel, they're not uneducated people, and they're powerful people. Nineveh was the capital of Assyria. It was the capital. Usually you build capital is more culture. The people there are more educated because they are supposed to rule the nation and make policies, right? Sounds familiar to where we are living? We are living just right outside D.C., and lots of people living around us commute there and work there, right? These people really thought they didn't need the God of Jonah. They thought we have our own God. We have our own gods. We have our own way of worshiping. We don't really need anything else. But God said, you're wrong. You need me. That's why God sent Jonah to these people. And people around you, guess what? They also think that they don't need God. They think that, well, I didn't do anything wrong. I'm well educated. I have power. I'm an engineer. I'm a lawyer. I'm a doctor. I'm whatever. So I don't really need God. But God say, no, you really need me. But they don't realize that. And when they hear the gospel, hearsay here and there, they don't really give any thoughts to it until one day Jonah arrived in the city and preached against them. And God is calling us to do the same thing to people around us. They may think that they don't need God, but God said otherwise. And God is sending you into their life to tell them they really need Jesus. These people can be your classmates, schoolmates. They never even, I'm pretty sure most people heard of Jesus, the person. the human being, the historical figure. But they never give thoughts to it that I really need Jesus. I really need salvation. All they think of is that, hey, I live my own life and pursue my dreams, and that's it. We can easily live the way as they do. But God gave us a different assignment, different mission. While they are chasing their dreams, we chase a different dream. The dream is to fulfill God's mission. It's not like we can't have our own dreams or doing things outside preaching the gospel, but that is not our main mission in this life, believe it or not. That is not our main mission. Our main mission is to fulfill what God asks us to do. That is to share the gospel to these people and convince them, persuade them, whatever way we need to do to make them aware they need God, they need Jesus. That is what we need to do. So some questions for you to think about. When we think about our modern cities filled with people who feel like they have it all together, how can we show them the hope and truth of God in practical ways? The key words, practical ways. And not just argue with them, not just give them a gospel tract, but in practical way, how can we communicate to these people? These people we're talking about, your neighbors, your co-workers, your friends, even your families or relatives, or people live in the same community with you. Maybe, community in your school, your retirement community, or maybe some other groups in the city. Next question for you to consider. Some people around may seem to have messed up lives and moral codes. How can we reach out to them with God's message of love and salvation, rather than just judging and condemning them? These people need to be told, obviously, that what they do or what they are doing are not right. But besides that, what do we have to offer these people? What do we have to offer these people? Instead of just telling them, no, what you do is wrong, it's sin. God does not approve it. God is going to judge you. You're going to hell. Besides that, what do we have to offer these people? And what we can offer is answered by the next verse, or next thing said in the verse, is that God gave specific actions, commands to Jonah, and asked him to do what he needs to do, accomplish this mission. The first thing God asked Jonah to do was to get up. In some versions or translation, it says, arise, rise up, or whatever. But the main point communicate to it is the urgency. You need to get up. You need to get up from your seat. You need to get up from where you are and move. So basically it's that move. Get up and move and set out. That is the word. It is the sense of urgency that we need to have. We always think of doing ministry, sharing the gospel. Most of the time we think that we have time. Either the person will live, long. We have lots of time to share with the person, or maybe there are some other better opportunities, or maybe we can wait until a better time after we graduate, after we retire, whatever, that we have more time. Then we can serve God. We can share the gospel with this person. Yeah, but when God called Jonah to go to Nineveh, God expected immediate compliance, action. God didn't say go to Nineveh when you have time. Go to Nineveh when you retire or when you finish your SAT or whatever. God didn't say that. God just said, get up and go. When God calls to do things like that, God expects immediate action. May not be literally, but God expects us to make plans and take action to accomplish that. as soon as possible. So the sense of urgency actually is echoed in Jesus' teaching about doing God's work. As long as in this day we must do the work of Him who sent me. Night is coming when no one can work. There's nighttime. We cannot work. We only have 12 hours during daytime, or maybe a little bit longer. But Jesus' point is well taken. We only have limited time for us to do our job. Either you are limited, it's true, right? How many hours do you have in a week? Anybody good at math? 100 and what? 68, 78? I don't remember. But whatever. I mean, it's around that ballpark figure. And how many hours do you sleep? I mean, depends whom you ask, right? So let's say, normal. Healthy people. You sleep like 7-8 hours. So it takes away 50 hours, 56 hours. So you have 120 hours left. Then you have to work, you have to go to school, take away another 40 hours, right? And then you have to do your chore, you do everything else. Take care of yourself, taking shower, eating, cooking, doing dishes, laundry, all these things. How many hours do you really have in a day? That's not mentioning. No one works 40 hours a week. No one works 40 hours a week. Anyone here, if you're a full-time job or you're a full-time student, you spend only 40 hours at school and also doing your homework. Anyone. If you are doing that and earn a, reasonable paycheck, tell me. I want your job. No one does that. Oh, you do?
I was going to say, yours isn't 40 hours?
I don't know. I don't even know how to count that. Yeah. So anyway, it's just really difficult. It's really limited when you look at our schedule, right? You have only so much time, and you want to superimpose your schedule interacting with people with another person. Think about that, how difficult it is. One of the most difficult thing is to schedule a meeting with multiple people. Besides work. Work is kind of like, you are there, you're required to work. You're required to have this meeting. So if, let's say, the manager or supervisor or the group leader said, hey, we are going to meet on Monday morning, 7:30 or 8 o'clock. Everybody will be there, either through Zoom or in person or whatever. But let's say you want to share the gospel with someone. You want to just have a cup of tea, a cup of coffee, or whatever. And you said, when you have time this week. Guess what? It's really difficult to match people's schedule. We are talking about, when I try to schedule like youth meetings, and we try to schedule like new cell group meetings, there are so many different schedules floating around. It's just very difficult. It's really limited. So there's only one factor. It's our personal limitation in terms of scheduling. Not to mention that everyone, our life will end at some point. And nobody knows when we are going to go see Jesus or not see Jesus. Nobody knows, right? No matter what age you are. Recently, we know. Because we had something, someone just really young pass away recently. So you never know. That's why there's urgency. That's why Jesus said when there's light, we need to work. Don't think that, hey, my uncle, he's like only 60-something, so he has plenty of time. You don't know about that, right? Okay, my coworker is going through a divorce. I really want to care and talk to her, talk to him, but I'm so busy. Well, you don't know. You lose the opportunity, the teachable moment, the moment you can support the person, you can share the gospel with the person and build bridges with this person. So that's why when God asked Jonah to go there, God expects immediate action. And Jesus said, do not say 4 months more and then the harvest. I tell you, open your eyes. If we open our eyes and look at the fields, they are ripe for harvest. It's just that we don't have time to harvest the crops. And guess what? When you don't harvest, what's going to happen to the crops? They just over-ripen. They'll rot on the field. You pass the opportunity to bear fruits for the kingdom. So that's why when God asks us to do something, do it immediately. How can we do it? It's the same action that God told Jonah, as Jesus told us, is to go. To go is to take action and take initiative. Not just get up and try to plan to do something, but we actually get our hands dirty. We actually move our feet and use our hand, use whatever resource we have to take action, to do whatever it needs to be done to accomplish the mission. Right? The same command. Therefore, go, make disciples. So we really need to take the initiative. We really need to take action to accomplish things. Jesus asked us to be light and salt, right? Light and salt. Light is to attract people. When people see light, they're being attracted. Salt, you really have to go to the thing you need to work on to exercise your influence, right? Like a piece of meat. I mean, you can't put the salt shaker here and say, hey, meat, come over. And then if the meat will be crawling over, you'll be scared. That's scary, right? Someone has to take the salt out of the salt shaker and put it on the piece of meat, right? I mean, you have to take action in order to affect people. That is what it takes, is to go, right? So that's why instead of just meeting at church in our small group, asking people to come, which is a great thing, I greatly encourage you to do that. Invite people to go to small group. Invite people to come to Sunday school, come to Sunday worship, and whatever meeting you have, invite people to come. But on top of that, we also need to go to these people. We need to go to these people. Not just saying, hey, I invite my neighbor, I invite my friend to come to small group, and they don't come, so I give up. Hopefully not, because that is not the only way, and probably not the best way to do it. The best way is that we go to them. Well, go to them and say, hey, I mean, when do you have time to have a cup of coffee? Or maybe I can go and visit you, I bake some pie, some cookie, I mean, we can have a cup of coffee. That's probably a better way to do it. Yeah, because if you've never been to church, I mean, it's hard to imagine now because you have been in church for so long, right? I mean, 40 years, 60 years, 20 years. It's not threatening to you. It is actually something we look forward to, hopefully. I look forward to come to church. I mean, every time we have worship, we have meeting. But for non-believers who've never attended church before, it's threatening. They don't know what's going on, right? You come in, and they just look around. Nobody's greeting them, and they don't know anybody. They try to find a seat. And then we are partaking the communion, and then they look at it, they don't know what it is and why we are doing it. And then they sit down and listen to a lecture for 40 minutes, and without them saying a thing. That is really difficult. That is so strange to them. That may not be the best way to invite non-believers to come on Sunday. That is not even intended for them. I mean, we are not saying that don't invite them, but Sunday worship, that's why it's called worship, right? It's not a Sunday evangelistic rally, right? It's not an evangelistic Bible study. It's a Sunday worship. It's a place for believers to worship God, to please God, and to have fellowship with God and with one another. So what we need to do is actually to go to these people, to go to them. to take action, not just stay in our own shell, but go to them. When we go to them, what do? We preach to them. I mean, not necessarily literally preach to them, like what I'm doing now to preach to them. You drive them away, probably. What it means is that to share a message, share your testimony, share the way what God works in your life in whatever way you can. As Paul said, it is by means of all wisdom. That's what Paul said. All wisdom, not just by ways of preaching. He said, by way of all wisdom, bring people perfectly before God. So there are many ways you can do it. As we said, I mean, you just sit down, have coffee with this person, share a meal, or just chit-chat, or the person has a need, you help the person out, right? The person just moved, you help the person to probably organize things. When the person is sick, you cook something and go over and just care for the person. Not even necessary to pray for the person. If the person wants to, agree to it, that will be the best. But if not, that's fine. Just show our goodwill, show that we care, to build bridges, build a relationship with these people, so that we may share the gospel later. So there is a process. It's not, for Jonah, it's not really a process. He just went there and preached. But for us, most of the time, it's a process. We need to share the gospel with these people. We need to do whatever it takes to get to these people. So that is the mission that God gave to Jonah. So should we choose to accept it? That's also our mission. That's also our mission if we want to accept it. It's important to notice that, in a sense, we have a choice, in a sense. Yeah, because we see that actually Jonah chose not to accept it. Right? That is the whole story of the book. It's because Jonah chose not to accept the mission and said, hey, I don't really like what I see. I don't really like what I heard or the place you asked me to go. God, I chose not to do it. Yeah, that's another story. We're going to go into that. But it's a choice. What happened to that, that's another story. But when God gives us a mission, like share the gospel with people, like ministering to people, caring for our loved ones and people around us, God expects us to take action and accept it. And that is something we need to do. But instead, of course, Jonah went the other way. When we think about our life, go back to the very beginning. When we talk about who we are, where we came from, why are we significant? In what way we are significant? It has a lot to do whether our life is in compliance with God's big mission, or what we call the Great Commission. If what we are pursuing now, the mission, our own goal, if they don't align with God's mission, big mission, it means nothing at the end. I just read an article this morning. It's so funny. This guy bought a plot of land. A lot. Plot usually is when after you die, you go somewhere. So this guy bought a lot of land and built his own house. So the builder contractor went there and built up this beautiful house according to his plan. Really nice, big mansion, multi-million-dollar house. And then before he could move in, he received a notice from the builder and contractor, whoever, sent him the letter and said, hey, we made a mistake. We actually built your house in another person's lot, next to your lot. And guess what? Tough luck. Now the house becomes nothing. It had to be demolished. Well, we can buy it. But the person doesn't want it. He didn't want their house in his lot. So they want their own design. So that is a very good reminder, I guess, for us to build our life, to pursue our mission. No matter how beautiful the house you have in mind, how beautiful is the mansion, your dream, your goal, and whatever aspiration you have, it doesn't really matter. It only matters if you build it on the right place, right? I mean, the Bible, what the Bible said is to build on the right foundation. If you build on other foundation, at the end, it's going to be demolished. That's exactly what 1 Corinthians chapter 3 says. There's only one foundation, one lot. Everybody's building on that. You can choose to get out of that lot and build somewhere else for yourself. Whatever empire you have, whatever business, whatever life you're pursuing, you may be successful, it may be whatever. But at the end, when God comes back and inspect it, God will say, well, that is not exactly where I want you to build. That site is for demolition. That will be pitiful. That will be tragic. But we have lots of time ahead of us. We can always still build on the foundation of Christ, and that is what God calling us to do now. Go, or arise, go and preach. Let's build together. Let's pray. Your Father, thank you so much for bringing us Jonah's story and his message. The mission you gave to him is to arise and go and preach. Same for us, you gave us the great commission to make disciples out of all nations. Lord, just help us. Help us to make this our mission and choose to accept it and give priority to what you ask us to do in our life. Maybe it's someone in our school, at work, in our family, they have a need, we see it, and we are in position to talk with this person, to comfort this person, to care for this person. Lord, help us not to procrastinate, not to set it aside, put it away, but act immediately and comply and build bridges and be able to share the gospel with them, to witness to them. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.